Ruin My Childhood.
Thank you for listening to Ruin My Childhood, the podcast where we decide if some things are better left in the past. I'm Mike.
And I'm hungry.
A.K.A.
Katrina.
A.K.A.
Cat.
Yeah. So, Kat, love of my life, what are we going to be talking about today for this Halloween special?
The Addams Family.
I didn't do the beginning part with the snap. She's like waiting to snap, and I skipped the. I loved this movie as a kid. I don't think I saw this one in theaters, but I know my family liked it enough that we saw the sequel in theaters. So, but anytime this was on TV, I watched it. What was your relationship with this movie?
This movie, I loved it anytime it was available. Luckily, it did get a lot of airplay. I think heavily edited versions got a lot of airtime. We didn't own it, and I think it was generally like frowned upon in my house to watch anything in this vein.
That's funny. I can't think of what really would have needed to be edited because this was meant to be a kid's movie.
Yeah, but it's very dark.
It is dark. It's macabre.
It's macabre.
It's a $10 word for our listeners. What do you remember about the movie?
Oh, gosh. It's hard to actually figure out what I remember about this film and what I remember about Addams Family Values.
I don't remember Values as much other than it had a baby in it.
Right.
But that one didn't seem to be on TV as often as this one. So I watched this one a lot.
This one I remembered it was much more centered around Uncle Fester.
That's correct.
And that's kind of it. I mean, it's really like I remember the characters more than I remember the movie.
Plot.
Yeah.
So from what I remember, I think in this version, Uncle Fester had been missing for a couple of decades.
Yeah,
and then he comes back. And it's all about them getting to know Uncle Fester. Like, the kids have never met Uncle Fester.
Getting to know you.
And Gomez, played by Raul Julia, is like just ecstatic because he hasn't seen his brother in decades. And it's just about Uncle Fester, like, reacclimating to the weird family.
Got it.
I think that's what it is. Don't quote me.
All right.
But other than that, like, yeah, specifics.
For Christmas, you're going to get a t-shirt that has that.
Don't quote me.
I mean, that's an option too, but I was just going to have the Uncle Fester quote on it.
Other than that, yeah, I don't really remember much about this movie. Surprisingly, we didn't get a lot of comments about this, which really, really surprised me. I thought a lot of people were going to bite on this one, but...
Oh, wait, I did get one.
Oh, get it real quick then.
It was from Annie F. And
Annie, are you okay? Are you okay?
It's Morticia. You frightened me. Do it again.
Oh, thank you.
That is definitely something I remember about this film is Gomez and Morticia kind of being like the ultimate goals couple.
Yeah, you see that meme quite often, like #goals, or you'll see like the Joker and Harley Quinn, and then people break it down about how Joker and Harley Quinn are like a terrible relationship. But if you want that dark one, you should go Gomez and Morticia.
Absolutely.
Julie Mendez said, we actually just watched this. The thing I remembered that still held up was Gomez and Morticia were an amazing couple.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to say that again because I said couple.
Yikes.
No, let's just leave it. Like, as is. Couple.
Is that a position?
No, it's like the paper towel you use to clean up.
No!
After
You're horrible.
You crumple it up and throw it away.
Stop. Stop.
That's bad.
Or is it kind of like a glory hole, but it's like a pole instead?
What? A glory pole? How does that work?
I don't know, but you said cum pole, so
pole. Not pole.
I should be the one
Let's
asking
go watch the movie.
The questions.
All right, we're back. We watched The Addams Family.
This movie's great.
Way to blow our load at the beginning of the discussion.
Sorry, I didn't realize that was such a cum pull for you.
That's a callback from I don't want to say a Freudian slip, but some sort of slip.
Okay,
from
for
before
the
intro of
listeners, that
episode.
would have been like 10 seconds ago, honey.
Yeah, it would have been. Anyhow.
Lord.
But no, I did drastically. I did definitely enjoy watching this film. It was very fun. I guess, do you want to summarize this film really quick?
Michael Marcelino.
Whoa, don't throw my
Acevedo.
middle name out there. People will be able to identity thief me.
When have I ever wanted to do a summary?
Maybe someday you'll surprise us. Anyway, okay, summary of the movie. I was pretty close to what I thought the movie was about. I was a little off, but the premise of this movie is the Addams family are super rich. They're one of the biggest charitable families in their city, wherever the hell they're supposed to be. I don't know where they're supposed to be.
Cincinnati. No, it could be anywhere. It's just kind of got that Tim Burton town vibe.
So this was Barry Sonnenfeld, which he did Men in Black and Wild Wild West. So this is the third movie
stuff.
we've done. Actually, just looking at the opening credits, it was very reminiscent of Men in Black. It was like the same font, everything, and kind of had like the camera panning around, following things. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't realize it until I saw the credits, and I was like, this looks very familiar. And then I saw his name, and I was like, oh, this makes a ton of sense. And it also makes sense because both Men in Black and Wild Wild West are kind of weird movies with kind of, they're both kind of macabre, and they're both kind
Out
of
there.
peculiar and out there. Exactly. And
They're very strange.
this is a very strange movie too. And I have to say the special effects were fantastic with Thing,
They
the
really
hand.
were.
Yeah, I was
but
really
like,
impressed.
what can I say? It was, what year was this?
91.
The 90s, like, they were simpler times.
Yeah.
People were comfortable. People were starting to, like, branch out and explore and make edgier, weird content. And I think people started to really embrace these franchises that existed seemingly for the sake of being odd.
Weird. But to get back to the summary, essentially, the Addams are this well-to-do family. Everybody knows who they are, but everyone's kind of weary of them, and they stay away. And they're simple. They're very trusting. They love each other, but they're into the macabre, spooky stuff. This movie has like that weird magical realism where like it's supposed to be in the real world, but there's magic kind of. Like there's some weird stuff that happens in the house. Like there are inanimate objects that seem to be alive. There's obviously a hand that just floats around. There's Cousin It, who's just like 3 feet tall and
Apparently
covered in fur.
zombies are not completely out of the question.
Yeah, it's super weird. But the premise of this movie is Tully. Was it Tully or Sully?
Tully, I thought.
Tully. So it's Tully, who we've seen a lot. So it's this like the short, hairy kind of guy. He played Carla's
Short,
husband.
hairy kind of guy.
He played Carla's husband in Cheers. He was also, we just watched The First Wives Club, and he was in that. So it was surprising to see this guy.
What?
Yeah, he played Bette Midler's husband in The First Wives Club.
I'm
just
just
watched
like, your description of the poor man.
He's short and hairy. That's like,
Short and hairy.
you know who I'm talking about. Anyhow, he is the Addams family's like personal lawyer / accountant, and he owes a bunch of money to another very wealthy.
Dan Hedaya?
Yeah, I think so.
He's not hairy though.
He's super hairy.
Okay, when I think of him, I think mafioso.
Yeah,
I don't
see
think
him in Cheers with shirts buttoned down to his navel,
If
and he's
I were-
covered in fur.
if I were in casting and I wanted his type, I would be asking for a mafia type. I wouldn't be asking for a hairy guy.
Well, mafia guys, that Venn diagram, that
There's
overlap
some
is pretty
friends.
large.
Apparently, all the mafia men supposedly have little tails.
Okay.
No, because I know a guy and he has a little tail.
Oh, just like the mafia, you know a guy.
He's Italian. He has a
Racist.
little tail. And he said it very matter-of-factly, like it wasn't a big deal. And I'm like, oh, that's unusual. And he was like, yeah, all the little mafia baby boys have tails.
'cause
And
they're
he was
rats.
like,
They're rats.
immediately defensive about it. And I felt bad because, maybe we should be normalizing tails if they are naturally occurring. But that was just not something I was expecting. That it's like, this is a mafia thing.
It is a mafia thing.
Babies
They're
with
rats.
tails.
So anyway, Tully owes one of his other rich clients a ton of money, and he's trying to embezzle money from Gomez and tells them, oh, I've got this big charity. Why don't you give me $1 million? We'll do it. And Gomez goes, nope, that's new business. We're not going to do that till next quarter. So Tully realizes that his rich client's son looks a lot like Uncle Fester. And so they decide to take this guy named Gordon, played by Christopher Lloyd, shave his head, and present him as Fester, Gomez's long-lost brother. And they're going to use Fester to get to the vault and get the money. And that's pretty much the movie. It turns out that it actually is Fester who had amnesia, and it's just about him realizing who he truly is while his fake mom and the lawyer are stealing the money, and they're trying to steal the Addams family fortune.
So how is it the fake mom convinced him that he was her son? Did she just take advantage of the amnesia early on? Like, where was he?
He got struck by lightning and then ended up getting out, like lost at sea. And she found him on the beach in Florida, and then took him in and said, "Of
course, she would be from Florida."
I mean, she didn't say she was from Florida. She was just found him in Florida.
She was there hanging out, doing shady things.
Yep, Florida.
Floridians.
It kind of sounds like a dirty word.
It is. Floridians.
So, I just got to say at the beginning of this, we've kind of started to shy away from doing things like we did Scary Movie. We did the Austin Powers films, which for some reason that podcast episode disappeared.
What?
Yeah, it just got corrupted, and it's the only one that I don't have a backup of for some reason. The only one. But when we did Austin Powers and when we did Scary Movie, we talked about how it's really hard to cover those type of movies because there's just so much stuff going on, a joke a minute, not a lot of plot, so it's really hard. This movie, initially, I wanted to keep track of all the weird, goofy stuff like the gate coming alive and candles blowing out and, pipes burping and stuff like that, like all the weird stuff. But they're like within the first 10 minutes of the movie, like I lost count. Like this movie has so much stuff. Like I could rewatch this movie right now and I guarantee there's at least a dozen weird things moving in the background that I missed.
There's so much to see, which I absolutely love. Like, my favorite movies of all time are always those where you can watch them infinite times and still see new things. I've seen Moulin Rouge hundreds of times and I still see something new every single time. Edward Scissorhands kind of falls into that area. This film, within like the first 30 seconds, I was just thinking, it's beautiful.
It is. It's very well done.
It's creepy and it's goofy, but it is absolutely gorgeous.
It is. No, it's really, really well done. The makeup's fantastic. The costuming's great. Just, a little bit like they went through like several iterations of each thing. At one point, Morticia was going to have like the black eyes like Fester did, but then they realized they didn't like it and they wanted it to be more like the original. So, and poor Angelica Houston, to get like the same body type as the original, she had to wear like a metal corset.
Oh my God.
They actually put like her eyes on wires and pulled wires back to the back of her head so she can get like the angular eyes like the original version.
That's intense.
Yeah, no, she was miserable during the shoot, she was saying. So it was really intense for her. They did change some things because originally they were going to give her the dark eyes to match Uncle Fester because I guess in the TV show, Uncle Fester was her uncle and not an Addams. It was part of the extended family. But for this, they changed it and made Fester Gomez's brother.
Interesting.
Interesting indeed.
So I wonder if changing that, like the movies have become so popular, which one is considered Addams Family canon?
I don't know. And we were going to cover this on Remake Rewind last year, but for whatever reason we didn't because they came out with the animated version last year and there's a sequel coming out next year. So I'll definitely have to check out the new one and see which version of Uncle Fester they kept for that version. So it's funny, like one of my first notes is actually the thing that your listener comment said, the you scared me, do it again kind of thing. But it's kind of weird. Like we see this like montage of all this weird stuff happening. We see like the gate slam shut on its own. You see Wednesday, played by Christina Ricci, shooting an apple out of Pugsley's mouth with a crossbow.
Christina Ricci is so cute.
She had the forehead of an adult.
She's a round little cherub face. she was adorable.
Every time you see her in bed, she's sleeping with her arms crossed like a vampire. Apparently she just did that on her own, and The director's like,
great.
oh, that's cool. Just do it.
This kid gets it.
She does get it. And she's always kind of like stuck to being a little dark. I mean, she went and did Casper, and she did like Black Snake Moan, and then she's done a few other like weird kind of creepy movies. So you know what? That's right in her wheelhouse. Good for her.
She's a spooky girl.
She is spooky girl.
Good for her.
But my first real note, what your listener brought up was like Addams. They're all Addams. Gomez goes into like the bedroom and he sees Morticia sleeping and he's like, look at her. I would die for her. I would kill for her. Either way, bliss. And then she wakes up and they have a little back and forth. And then she says the line, last night you were unhinged. You were like some desperate howling demon. You frightened me. Do it again. And it's great. And then what's funny is right before we watched this, I found this tweet. And I'm going to read it to you. And I'm not going to censor this because these are words from the writer of the movie. So right under this on the script, it says, Gomez quickly moves to her besides writer's notes. We should get the sense as much as humanly possible that all the couple does is fuck each other. Their only want on earth is to fuck, and they do. I understand that this is intended to be a kid's movie, but I cannot stress enough the importance these two consistently teaming with frankly demonic levels of horniness for one another. If we cannot agree on this, I walk, but you should know that I already spent the money.
Demonic levels of horniness.
Yep.
I love that. It's not real, but I love it.
What do you mean it's not real?
It originated in a tweet.
Oh, you looked it up?
I already checked it out.
Oh, where did it come from?
I don't know. I think the person tweeting it just wrote it.
Because it looks good. Like it looks like a script.
It does look
It
like
looks
a
like
script.
picture.
The power of Google. I just went to the original tweet and looked at it, and it said they posted it as a joke.
Oh. It's believable, though.
It is believable. I think, I'm a little unsure of how well received the sequel will be, because in so many ways, I question if the modern audience really understands this brand of spooky. And I kind of feel like Sabrina the Teenage Witch getting canceled, and of course that has a little bit to do with the pandemic as well, that fell into this caricature kind of depiction of witches and ghosts and goblins. And it's a folkloric universe, but it's
Right.
like a campy American 1980s
Digestible version.
Halloween marketing kind of creepy. It's the
Right.
theme song. Like, look
They're
no
ooky
further.
and they're spooky.
Like,
Ba-doop-a-doopy
The word
doopy.
kooky is in there.
Yeah.
Like, it is not going to be true to the folklore of these origins, and it's not going to be like a highly stylized version of vampire lore like the Vampire Diaries. It's just nonsensical, and there's really no explanation for why they are the way they are. They're just creepy people.
Yeah, and what's weird is like they are creepy.
They're
and
not imbued with any specific magic for
but
any
there's
reason.
Definitely magic. And
Right.
It's just nobody
but
acknowledges
the
it.
universe is magical, I think.
But I think I don't even know if the universe is magical because the only place we see magic or weird things happening is at the house and around them. Like magic stuff isn't happening when they're out at the play or when they're out at, the auction or when they're staying in the hotel. Like all the magic is isolated at the manor.
And it's interesting how there's that energetic shift. It's almost like getting characters from Beetlejuice dropped into a Wes Anderson film when the Addams family is interacting with other people.
And what's interesting is like nobody really acknowledges things. Like they just accept that's how it is. So like Tully,
True.
His wife Margaret, who's like the head receptionist in Home Alone 2, she goes with him and she's like, hey, you need to like be nice to them. They're your last paying customer. And they get like attacked by the gate outside the house and they just shrug like they're used to it. Like this happens every time. And then Tully gets bitten by the bearskin rug. And same thing, he just kind of like, ugh, like it's annoying and like pries it off of him. So it's like they recognize this. And then Margaret, the wife, who, you would think in any other movie she'd be a bad guy too, but it turns out she's just like married to this loser and she leaves him for Cousin It and is very happy by the end of the movie. But she's very miserable at the beginning. But she gets a bunch of like antiques from Morticia for an auction. And that auction scene's great, by the way. We'll get to it. And she doesn't even acknowledge that any of this stuff is like magical antiques that she's going to be selling to people. And then when they're like, the judge just like not acknowledges he doesn't like the guy, but nobody acknowledges their supernatural powers. It's super weird. Like, they get struck by lightning and can survive, and they can be tortured, and they feel like they actually get pleasure from the pain. Like, it's really bizarre, and I don't know how to explain.
It doesn't always make sense, and I don't feel like the rules established by their statements really apply even across the entire movie.
No, I don't think so.
Because in some cases, what's good is bad and what's bad is good, which is similar to Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And you just kind of have to ignore it.
Yeah.
You have to go with the flow, which I really like, because it forces you to be so much more accepting of the creativity that's being thrown at you.
Well, and then the thing that's kind of endearing about it is they are weird. They talk about liking torture. They talk about liking death. But they legitimately care about everyone. Like, they're very generous. They're a much better family than many depicted. They love each other, but when they go to that auction where they donated a bulk of the items and they're bidding on it, like, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their own things. And part of it was like a weird flirtatious thing between Gomez and Morticia.
Yeah, they were getting off on it.
But they legitimately want to do these things and take care of their community. So it's interesting how they're generous and want to help people, even though, like you said, things that are bad, that we would associate with bad, they say is good. So it's like this dichotomy that doesn't really make sense, that you just have to accept that they're weirdos, but they're good weirdos.
They are. They're lovable weirdos.
So getting into like more of the plot of the movie, I really liked Uncle Fester's kind of journey in bonding with the kids. Like, it was the kids that really dawned on him that he wanted to be a family. Like, he didn't even realize he was Fester until like the very last act of the movie.
Right.
But he grew to love the kids, and he grew to love Gomez, and he kind of realized he just wants to be part of this family regardless. And then it just happened to work out that he actually was Uncle Fester. But his relationship was fantastic, because initially he's like freaked out by them. He doesn't want to eat their food. He's really concerned about how touchy-feely they are. Mm-hmm. And then he realizes he's never had that. And I thought that was really endearing. Like, there's a point where he's supposed to be staying in and trying to break into the vault, but he ends up developing this like Quentin Tarantino blood sprayer to help the kids with their play. And he ditches his mom and goes to the play to watch the kids. And I thought that was really sweet. And
I loved that scene with the play.
Yeah, essentially what happened is the Wednesday and Pugsley, they're not your typical kids. They don't want to be singing about sunshine and flowers and whatnot. So they're left out of like most of the pageant when the kids are singing. But so they could be part of it, they got to reenact a dramatic scene from a play. And they picked Macbeth, and they start fighting each other. And every time they get struck, like, blood sprays everywhere.
It's pretty great.
It's like beyond Tarantino Kill Bill levels of blood.
The entire first few rows of the audience gets completely saturated. Like, you think they're about to stop and they just keep going, but for some reason the gag just keeps getting better.
And then the family out in the audience, the whole time they're like miserable listening to the kids singing and everything, but then when they're doing this like play or this scene, they're getting up and cheering and clapping. They're really happy. They're very supportive of their kids. It's great.
I loved Gomez and Morticia being annoyed with the kids at the beginning of the play. They're so cute and cheerful, just rolling their eyes.
I think that they just called her mom, but Morticia's mom lives with them, and she's like your stereotypical witch. She actually looks a lot like the witch in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. But one of my favorite jokes in this is they talk about how the human spirit's hard to kill. So the doctor, it's actually Gordon's mom or Fester's fake mom, shows up with Fester to explain, oh, he's had amnesia, and we want him here for, a week or so we can start to figure out who he is. And they're like, well, how did he survive? And she's like, oh, the human spirit's hard to kill. And the mom's like, yeah, even with the chainsaw. Majority of this movie is Fester trying to get into the safe. So after he has his first dinner there and he really doesn't he wakes up the next morning and Gomez is like, oh, dear brother, like, what is your plans for the day? And he's like, oh, I really just kind of want to wander the house and get my memories back. And Gomez is like, no time for wandering. You need to go straight to the vault. And like Fester like perks up, and it's a lot like Casper, where they have like this whole like slide system that they go through.
The password for the vault is 2, 10, 11 eyes, fingers, toes. That was their key for remembering it.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, he pulls the top out of the decanter and trips the hell out. They don't really explain exactly what happened there.
No, they didn't. And so, yeah, he sees all the gold and everything, so he needs to figure out how to get in there. There's like a secret book that you have to pull to get in, and then it's a slide, and then there's the safe, like you've said, the 10.
This is a fun part of the movie. The kids are also up in the attic, and Wednesday is getting ready to electrocute her brother. And Morticia walks in, and she asks what they're doing, and Wednesday's like, I'm going to electrocute him. And Morticia's like, but we're late for the charity auction. Please. Oh, all right. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Well, and once they do these kind of things and they survive, like they have to have some sort of like low level immortality or special endurance.
Right.
So I don't know.
The kids are basically just constantly trying to kill each other.
Yeah. Well, it's like even Gomez and Fester, like when Gomez first sees Fester, he like goes for a hug and then like flips him around and slams him on the ground. And like Fester looks more confused than hurt.
Right.
And I think it's more the second movie, but like Fester does a lot of weird stuff with like electricity. So like he's immune to electricity as well, but whatever. So after about a week of not getting anything done, the mom shows up as the doctor and says, hey, we need to get Fester out of here. It's important that he learns who he is, but also comes to terms with who he is on his own. So they want to get him out because the mom realizes he's falling for the family. So they decide to have this big shindig with the entire extended Addams family. So we get Cousin It in this like really weird like 3-wheeled car or something like that. And it's like super flirtatious with Margaret, Tully's wife. And she's like just enamored by Cousin It from like the get-go. And she's like, oh, I never could. It's can't.
Perfect.
It's super weird. But
how does
really
she
fun.
run away with Cousin It when he has that teeny tiny car?
I'm sure they get a bigger car. Maybe Cousin It just comes and moves in with him because at the end of the movie it's Halloween and like they're a couple. So maybe it's Cousin It's not that far away. Who knows?
He just moved in.
Yeah, maybe.
One big happy family.
Yeah. One of the things I thought was really funny was there's like this big band at the party and like everyone's playing regular instruments and there's one guy playing a cobra.
Right. There are so many random things that aren't explained at all.
No, they
and
don't.
If you blink, you'll miss them. Like the scene with the train when Gomez is all stressed out. And he goes to his train and he's like, I don't know, I guess that's how he thinks. He like hashes it out with his model trains, but there's like a little person in the train itself.
Yeah, what was that?
And his eye looks in and scares them. Like, what?
Yeah, there's a little tiny person.
At that point, Fester also travels through a tube of liquid in a different part of the house, and there are sharks swimming around.
There's sharks and there's water. He ends up flying outside of the house, and like outside of the house where he came out, there were like these pipes coming out of the wall, and each one had somebody's name. So he came out of Pugsley's pipe.
I love that so much of this movie, and now that we are kind of going through it and looking back on it, there isn't a ton to the plot.
No.
Most of what makes this movie great is the slice of life moments where you're just seeing the day-to-day and you're getting kind of a grand tour of their bizarre, beautiful house.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, it is so beautifully shot and there's so much to look at and it's so funny at the same time that you don't really mind.
No, not at all. And so, like, they go to the auction, they come back, they do the play, which we already talked about the play at the beginning. And then after the party, they go out for like dinner or whatever, and when they come back, Tully and the mom just decide, they realize that because Fester was actually the older brother, he technically has rights to the inheritance. And so what they do is Tully being the lawyer, basically gets a restraining order for the entire family from the house, and he gets the judge to sign off on it because the next door neighbor is a judge, and Gomez is constantly hitting golf balls off the roof into the judge's house. So the judge just signs the restraining order. So now the Addams are not allowed in their own house. So we get Fester and Tully and the mom still trying to break into the vault. But then we get to this like it's pretty short, but we get this like super depressed Gomez in the hotel room. We have Morticia goes and becomes a kindergarten teacher.
They go to therapy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they go to therapy.
The scene with the therapist, and they're like, "You were feeling the little black monster," and one of them says, "Pugsley, guilt, yes."
Well, that was the mom.
That was the mom.
That was the mom.
Oh, that's right.
Right, but she was because there was some weird thing that Fester didn't know, and so Gomez was like, he's not real, and that's when he had the train scene, and then Fester realizes that they think he's a fake, so he goes to his mom and says they realize I'm fake. So the mom goes in and is like, it's displacement.
Right.
You feel guilty.
They thought she was a therapist.
Yeah. But I just wanted, for our listeners, I wanted them to know it was the mom.
Right.
That was a great scene, though. Displacement. Have you ever heard of displacement? Yes. No. They explain it.
She explains, it's love, hate, love, like your mama. And he's like, I didn't hate my mother. It was an accident.
What's good? Nothing explained.
And it's great because, like, at the same time, they're making this massive backstory about these characters in one-liners.
Yeah.
And you get so much about them, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. So we get... I didn't realize... I got a couple scenes mixed up with the sequel. So one of the things I see constantly as a meme is Wednesday at, like, a summer camp by a lake saying like they're supposed to be doing CPR lessons, and like the little blonde girl who's the Girl Scout in this one, and she's like, I'll play the victim, and Wednesday goes, for the rest of your life. I thought that was this one, but in this it's a Girl Scout joke. So they're selling poisoned lemonade outside of their hotel, and the Girl Scout shows up and she's like, how about this, you buy a box of my Girl Scout cookies and I buy your lemonade. And then she asks all these questions about the lemonade. Is it made with real lemons? Is it made with real sugar? I can't have all these things. And then Wednesday asks for the Girl Scout cookies, are they made of real Girl Scouts?
She just gets mad and leaves.
Right. So Morticia thinks something's off, so she's like, I'm gonna go talk to Fester. And then they just abduct her, and then the thing, which is just the hand, happens to still be in the house. Like, he doesn't come with the family for whatever reason. So he ends up seeing Morticia getting tortured. And so he goes on this like grand adventure to go tell Gomez what's going on. And
Thing kind of saves the day.
Yeah, they save Gomez comes, they end up fencing Gomez and fences with Tully. And then Fester realizes he is Fester. And so he uses a magical book. There's magical books.
Right?
Yeah, it's like the Page Master, which had Christopher Lloyd in it. This is like the 5th Christopher Lloyd movie we've covered.
Wow, it really is.
Yeah, because we did the Angels in the Outfield, this one, Page Master, and then the 3 Back to the Future movies.
Yeah.
Good for you, Christopher Lloyd.
Big part of our childhood.
Yeah, he was. So they use the book to open up the secret passage's greed because it goes to the vault. At one point, we get something about gales, and we just see a storm. And this time, they use the Hurricane Irene, and it's this huge storm, and it kills like everybody. And that's when the lightning hits Fester, and he gets his memory back. Wow! And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Right? Any highlights you want to bring up that we may have missed?
The mother cooking, and she's got a copy of Grey's Anatomy and The Joy of Cooking together. That was a good moment.
That's pretty funny.
That's a
good visual gag.
God, it's really just one-liners. This whole movie is one-liners.
It's a lot of one-liners.
There aren't that many things that really stand out to me because it's such an immersive experience. You just kind of watch it and see what happens, and there's so much to explore and there's so much to laugh at, and it's not like a note-taking cerebral experience.
Yeah, I agree, because there's so much going on. Like, it's really hard to really speak out about things that happen. I did really like The Thing. I keep saying The Thing. His name is just Thing.
Thing.
When he got a job to help support the family, he got a mail boy job at a I don't know what it's actually called, but like the person who delivers.
Sorter?
Yeah, well,
mail carrier.
Not a mail carrier. He was like somebody you see. This was a big thing in like the 90s, but in corporate movies, there's always like the guy who started in the mailroom
clerk.
Yeah, the mailroom clerk. Yeah,
there you go.
So yeah, he's the mailroom clerk.
Thing was actually a better swordsman than anyone else.
Yeah, he was good.
So I guess he just kind of like has some kind of weird thing that tumbles around inside the hand and enables him to throw his weight around. Like
Maybe.
how would a disembodied hand control a sword?
Maybe his hand is the only thing that's left of his physical self, but maybe there's like an astral projection like attached to the hand or something. Like
there's
a ghost
so much that's not
I don't
explained.
know.
Because we get the impression that Uncle Fester is somewhat undead at one point.
Yeah.
There are a lot of comments like that. So, Thing could just be a corpse hand, like an enchanted
Maybe.
corpse hand.
Well,
but we see some thought from Thing.
Yeah. We also, there's like living plants in this. Like there's a plant.
Christopher Hart, who actually played Thing, I looked at his IMDb and he did some stuff. Okay, he did an episode of Columbo before this, but then he played Thing in this in 91, which meant he also got to play Thing in the MC Hammer video for Addams Groove, which was the theme song that MC Hammer specifically did for this film. Then he was in Addams Family Values.
Of course.
Then
he
played Lefty, Quicksilver Highway. He was in a short called One Hand, Left. Then he came back for Addams Family Reunion. Then he was in Idle Hands.
Third movie?
Apparently in
Addams
98.
Family Reunion? I don't know what that is.
Then he played the hand in Idle Hands. And finally...
we should do Idle Hands someday.
Finally, his last credit was in 1999, an episode of Angel, and he played the hands.
So he just had like a whole career around his left hand.
Well, I mean, like he had a whole career for 9 years.
That's pretty insane,
with just his hands. But, they were very seen, very visible. But he could also be a commercial actor. Like, I've done quite a bit of hand modeling. It can be lucrative.
Interesting. I had no idea Addams Family Reunion was a thing. It's Tim Curry as Gomez, Daryl Hannah as
Addams
Morticia.
Family Reunion had Thing.
Yeah.
That is correct.
And then it had Lurch. It looks like they got the same actor for Lurch, and then everybody else is different. Weird. That was a TV movie. It wasn't like a theatrical release.
Got it.
Interesting. I had no idea that was a thing. Ha. That's pretty much all that I have for it. It's a very enjoyable film. Like,
do you have any good trivia?
So this was Raul Julia's favorite film. So he passed away just a few years after this. So he did this movie, he did the sequel, and then he did Street Fighter as his last movie. And he was sick with the cancer. It's unfortunate that Street Fighter was his last movie, but apparently the thing that made him happiest in his last 3 years was because this was a family movie. Kids would see him and remember him and be like, "Oh, it's Mr. Gomez," and it made him really happy until like the last few weeks of his life. So
I think he was a Puerto Rican, right?
No, I have no idea. Let's find out.
I'm pretty sure I don't know if he was born in Puerto Rico, but he was from Puerto Rico in some capacity.
No, he was born in San Juan.
San Juan?
Yeah. And then he went to
New York City.
Yep.
That was just a guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, he passed away in New York City, or in Manhasset, New York. But yeah, he did end up in New York.
There you go.
What was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I know you and I have watched it at some point since we've been together, but it's been years, and I really enjoyed this. Like, just like Beetlejuice, I feel like this is going to be something we have to work into our regular October rotations.
I would watch it again right now.
Same thing. So Beetlejuice was the last thing we covered. I started looking for it. I can't find it on Blu-ray anywhere. They just released it for in 4K. So the only thing you can buy is the 4K Blu-ray for like $40, and I'm like, not going to do that. We don't have a 4K TV yet, which is weird. Obviously this is what I'm really into, but we've got a plasma TV, and I love it. But yeah, I don't want to spend $40 on a 4K movie just yet. But this is another one that I'm like, man, I kind of want to buy this and keep it going.
I love this movie.
It was really good.
I can't wait to watch the subsequent ones. And now I kind of want to watch the TV show, which I've never seen a single episode of.
I haven't seen it since I was a little kid. I remember watching it with my grandpa once at his house, but
I like this kind of stuff. And unfortunately, the TV shows that are coming out now that are kind of like this in the creepy, weird, there are elements of magic that aren't really explained. Those TV shows don't usually get much of a run.
No.
They're usually canceled after like one season. We had, what was it? Pushing Daisies was
Those
kind of
2
like
seasons,
that.
yeah.
I mean, like Dead Like Me was kind of offbeat and a little bit like this. That one tried much harder to explain everything because it was like George died and then she had to work as this strange being in her like personal
You had
purgatory.
that Monsters revival with Jerry O'Connell that only made it like to the pilot.
And was it something Mockingbird Lane?
Yeah, that's the one I was just talking about.
Yeah, like those were all so fun, and so often, unfortunately, we end up with like 3 episodes to watch.
Yeah,
before
Mockingbird
it got
Lane was
canned.
great, and it was 1 episode.
I want to see so much more of that weird stuff.
So, yeah, this was really fun. I really want to go and watch the cartoon, and I actually would like to watch the TV show now. We started watching I Love Lucy a few weeks ago, and we've been loving that. I kind of really do want to go back and check out the original series.
Yeah. So I guess needless to say, this didn't ruin your childhood.
No, absolutely not.
I
enjoyed
like
it a
this
lot.
movie even more than I remember liking it as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Definitely a win. Definitely did not ruin my childhood.
So, what are we doing on our next episode? Did you honestly forget?
Did we decide?
We did. The next episode's going to drop 3 days after Election Day. So we were going to do something semi-presidential themed.
Dave.
That's right. Hi, I'm Dave.
But yeah, like now people are going to think that we did an episode about that.
What?
To be clear, we mean Dave as in the political figure, not the rapper
Lil
with
Dicky.
the messed up penis.
Yep. No, Dave from 1993, where some regular person is a doppelganger for the
Also
president.
featuring Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners find you?
I'm all over the internet at Katrina Ossity.
Check out her YouTube.
Woo.
And if you want to check out anything that's MDXpods related, go to MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, all at MDXpods. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods if you want to help us out. Starting shortly, we're going to be having bonus episodes for this show on there. We've already started doing bonus episodes for Remake Rewind, so check it out, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.